course, we have had two major Canterbury earthquakes, a leaky home disaster, the Pike River tragedy, and those are just a few of the challenges that the government has encountered along the way. But we're working hard, and Budget 2011, which is only 6 days away, further tackles our economic issues head on. So back in Budget 2009, our first budget, the priority was getting New Zealand through the global financial crisis. Then last year it was about tilting the economy away from borrowing, spending and consumption towards savings and investment. And a major part of that was the biggest overhaul of our tax system in 25 years, which along with the across the board personal tax rate saw a tax cut to the company tax rate. And that was a major step in making our businesses more internationally competitive, particularly against Australia, which won't have a 28% corporate tax rate until 2012-13. On Thursday, you will see that Budget 2011 builds on those two budgets and focuses on lifting national savings and investment and getting the government books back into surplus. The budget will restrain new spending, and the only three areas where new money will be available are health, education and the justice sector. The new money will be found from making savings in other areas of the public sector. Areas we are considering include getting better value for money out of our public services and better targeting major policies, such as working for families, KiwiSaver, as the Prime Minister indicated on Wednesday, and interest-free student loans. But I need to emphasise, and it almost feels like stating the obvious, that at 12:51 p.m. on February the 22nd, the government had no choice but to change its focus, and the game changed in a major way with the Canterbury earthquake. So now a major part of the budget will be focused on rebuilding Christchurch, which direct costs of the earthquake to the government, including EQC's share of repairing residential property, sits at around $8.5 billion. I want to make it clear that Budget 2011 is not going to be a slash and burn exercise. But the truth is, at a time when the government is borrowing $300 million a week to fund its expenditure, something's got to give. And we all need to be aware that things are going to be tight and will be for some time. The interesting thing about this is that individual households worked this out a long time ago, and private debt in New Zealand has been tracking downwards for some time. And the public sector, which is a bit slower, has not worked this out in the same way as individual households and private households have as quickly. So the government is taking some steps to incentivise a change of focus in that area. I just want to talk briefly about the commerce portfolio. Some of you may be aware, and there are some people in my electorate who are celebrating, that I've decided to retire from politics at the election. So I wanted to use this opportunity to reflect on the work done to reform the financial sector over the past 2.5 years. The overriding focus for my reform program has been pretty simple, and that's been to restore mum and dad investor confidence in our financial markets after the global financial crisis. That has been my focus, because if we can attract investors back to the capital markets, businesses like yours will have more access to the capital they need to grow. I don't think it's too far to say that we have completely overhauled the financial sector over the last 2 years. We've legislated for a financial advisor regime, we've regulated auditors, we've licensed trustees and statutory supervisors, we've brought in prudential regulation of non-bank deposit takers, we've introduced finance company moratorium, and we've introduced the requirement for financial service providers to be registered and belong to a dispute resolution scheme. But without a doubt, I have to say that my proudest achievement in the financial markets has been the establishment of the Financial Markets Authority. I'm immensely proud of the fact that the FMA is up and running almost a year to the day after I announced the idea in its first steps. The FMA has more teeth, more grunt, and more resources at its fingertips compared to previous regulators. For instance, it will have the power to exercise an investor's right to take action against a financial market participant when it's in the public interest to do so. It will have the ability to use regulations to prevent products from being structured to avoid being supervised by the FMA. I'll tell you what I mean by that. Some of these products in the finance company collapse were designed, particularly in the property syndication area, were designed to avoid being securities under the Securities Act legislation, meaning that the Securities Commission couldn't get anywhere near these issuers. Specifically, lawyers and other experts were asked to design product to fall outside that regime, so that prospectuses weren't available in the same way, and nor were the same checks or balances done. The Financial Markets Authority has a very significant power, that if a product walks like a security and talks like a security, they will have the ability to deem it to be a security for the purposes of the securities legislation, which is quite a significant departure from previous arrangements. It will also have enhanced tools to deal with lowball unsolicited offers. And I was delighted to pick up the Dominion this morning and see that the High Court has found that the lowball offers which were recently made on behalf of one individual have been overturned, apart from those 17 where investors wrote directly to the Financial Markets Authority and said they wanted them to stand. It will enforce a new oversight regime for registered exchanges. It's got a budget that's about 44% higher than the Securities Commission budget, and I believe that the board has exactly the right mix of people to do the business. Currently, our regime makes it difficult for growing companies to raise capital, and the new securities legislation, which I'm working on at present and I intend to introduce before I leave Parliament, will contain regulations that will make it easier for businesses such as those here in Taupo to grow. And I'm confident that we can strike the right balance in legislation between allowing companies to grow and innovate while ensuring that the unscrupulous do not exploit the unwary. In New Zealand's financial markets, there is no way that a government can guarantee that an investment is safe, and nor should it. It's not the government's job to take the risk out of investment, because that's where return comes from. But the simple fact is that where the game is being played, the regulator has a role to make sure there is a level playing field for those who are entering those markets, and that's been a very important first step. I want to thank you very much for the opportunity to be here this morning. I'm going to stop there so that we can take some questions and have a bit of a chat about some of the things that might be on your mind. I hope this event will become a regular occurrence in the future, and I'll certainly be telling my colleagues in the Cabinet that they should get to Taupo for a morning like this rather than staying in Wellington. So thanks very much for having me here. I appreciate it.